Evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 12th of August. Welcome to everybody for our AGM pre-engagement session. On the panel tonight, we have Mr. Jeffrey Lever, Chairperson of CIHOA, as well as Chair of EXCO, of Country Club. We have Craig Nell, SCC General Manager. You have myself, obviously, General Manager of CIHOA. I have Legal and Compliance Officer Sindika Gandin, our Brand Manager Jody Chetty, and Mr. Etienne Becherman, Finance Manager for both Country Club and CIHOA. Just in terms of our agenda for this evening, I will deal with the welcome as well as the introduction to the first ordinary resolution. Members would note that the election of directors is considered an ordinary resolution, and you would hear us referencing 3 ordinary resolutions in our pack and in our communications. It's also important to note that the ordinary resolutions are numbered 1 and 2 for the actual other resolutions. And that's done specifically because members are accustomed to seeing election of directors referred to as such. So I will deal with the welcome. I'll deal with the ordinary resolution election of directors. I'll then hand over to Sindika Gandin, and she will go through the introduction of our ordinary resolution 1, which deals with short-term letting rule changes. And she will also deal with ordinary resolution 2, which deals with the design review code changes that have been proposed. Thereafter, Jody, in her customary fashion, will deal with questions and answers. And we have the panel that can assist with those, whereafter we will close. Just in terms of our welcome for this evening, a reminder to members of the dates of our forthcoming AGMs. The SCC AGM will be held on the 18th of August, with the HOA AGM on the 27th. Your members would note that both AGMs will be held in true hybrid fashion. In essence, what this means is that members both virtually and in room will conduct voting on the same digital platform. And we will be making use of a company by the name of MeetingPal. We ask that members look out for the links which will be sent via MeetingPal's communication platform to your official email addresses. Also note that those email links are not to be forwarded. They are unique, and if they are forwarded, they won't work. Members would then get the link, they would log on and be able to attend to the AGM. There's some important information in both packs in relation to attending these hybrid meetings. Ask members that you go and read that information. It deals with making sure that you have a charged device, and as well as some of the steps to deal with in terms of logging in and registering. On the evenings, we will have MeetingPal's technical support team that will assist with any technical queries as it goes through. In relation to the SCC AGM as well, it's important to note that there are no resolutions for the vote at the AGM. So members that were expecting EXCO to put forward the SCC rejuvenation would note in the pack that there isn't any votes to be tabled. On the note on the SCC rejuvenation, EXCO will be sending out before the AGM a link to a survey, which EXCO seeks to gauge feedback from members in relation to various aspects surrounding not only the SCC rejuvenation, but other important topics. Surveying members is an important tool for EXCO to try and gauge the response from the community, and we urge members please to take part in that survey. The survey will be open for approximately 2 weeks, and thereafter it will close to allow the EXCO to deliberate on the feedback received. On to the election of directors, the first resolution. This year we have 3 positions up for election at the AGM, at CIHOA's AGM. 3 nominees that are standing for re-election include Mr. Gavin Dunlop, Mr. Clive McCready, and Miss Pamela White. We also have 2 new nominees, and that's Stephanie Ashworth and Fred Watts. They have kindly put forward their CVs. Members would find a link to their CVs in the AGM notices. This morning, Jody would have sent out a link to their videos. Those videos are shared and members can consume that information in their own time. Then questions for nominees are welcome to be sent through via our WhatsApp line. The number's on the screen. It's 073 156 1378. Or alternatively, you may email pa@simbiti.com. Those WhatsApp or email questions will be sent to the director nominee specifically, with the answers being returned to the person asking them. In terms of any other information, any other questions can be sent through to us at SIHOA. Again, use the email address pa@simbiti, and we'll facilitate that to the best of our ability. I'm going to hand over to Sindika, and she will deal with the resolution 1 and resolution 2. And once that's done, we'll work on questions. Thank you very much.
Good evening, members. I will take you through the proposed resolutions in relation to the rules as well as the design code. Members are encouraged to consider both resolutions in the context of the estate's long-term identity, governance, and security. On the first ordinary resolution proposed, the resolution seeks an amendment of the lease rule, being in relation to short-term letting. The review of the short-term letting rule by the Short-Term Letting Legal Advisory Working Group established by the board, which provided recommendations adopted by the board, found that short-term letting should remain permissible on the estate. However, it required further mechanisms to effectively manage security, compliance, and access control. These proposed amendments, as approved by the board, seek to mitigate the risk of a Trojan horse risks associated with short-term letting and an owner's right to lease short-term let their property. Our rules, being one of our governance provisions, provides that Simbiti was established as a residential estate and not a resort. The amendments seek to preserve the residential character of the estate, improve security and access control, enhance accountability of owners and property managers. I will deal with the amendments in groups. The first group of proposed amendments deal with the annual registration of short-term rental owners. The reason for this was to enable the association to monitor compliance of homeowners of the short-term letting rule and enable the association to withdraw registration of properties where the rules have not been adhered to in the past year. It also introduces the concept of a host. A host must attend an induction approved by the association. Property practitioners who act as hosts must also have Fidelity Fund certificates. A major amendment to the current rule is the introduction of the minimum stay period. The current amendments propose a minimum stay of 4 nights. Owners and hosts are also required to accompany guests during check-in and induction at the Welcome Center. Identification verification is required for all occupants over the age of 16 years. We've also included stronger obligations on tenants of short-term tenants and awareness of the state rules. The rules propose that short-term tenants may not have guests who are not residents of the estate. The reason for this is that there is no contractual nexus between the association and a guest of a short-term guest. In other words, we cannot impose any restrictions or easily identify a guest of a short-term guest because it is contracted already to a third party. Enforcement measures. Penalties will be imposed for non-compliant short-term homeowners, as well as for late submissions of existing leases. It also introduces the ability of the association to refuse registration where continuous breaches of the lease rules occur. In order to mitigate harm to those currently engaging in short-term letting and not affect their current bookings, it is proposed that the implementation of the rule come into effect on the 1st of March 2027. This will enable homeowners to honor their current reservations up until that point. The board recommends a vote in favor of this recommendation, of this rule. Thank you. Okay. Ordinary Resolution 2. The Design Review Committee reviewed the existing design code and town planning controls and have proposed the following resolutions to the board, which were adopted for proposal to the community. The purpose of this was to clarify existing rules and definitions and align the design code with current operational practices, improve compliance and administrative efficiency, and provide consistent assessment criteria for future applications. It includes definitions of a balcony, patio, and porch, which were not currently in the existing design code. It also revises the definition of a veranda, which provides clear distinctions between the architectural elements and removes confusion regarding veranda area calculations. We have done away with hard copy submissions. This is in line with our strategy. We now ask for electronic submissions. In relation to approvals given, only no response from CIHO does not constitute an approval. We've also introduced that homeowners, as well as their principal agents, will jointly be responsible for deviations from current plans. And we've also request now that surveys, level certificates, and height verification certificates be provided when completing a build or commencing a build. We have entered a new phase in the association where most of our properties are developed and most current homeowners and new homeowners seek to alter and add additions to their properties. For this reason, we have proposed an increase in the period for minor projects to 6 months and major projects to 9 months. Additions and alterations currently are only 3 months, currently only have a 3-month period. Okay. We've also had amendments to our pool fencing and outdoor features, jungle gym and trampolines, and water tanks. Notably, water tanks are obliged to be in the building lines. All fencing must be non-climbable. Saunas are permitted if attached to the dwelling. Generators should be switched off between 10 and 6 a.m. No new generator applications will be approved. Existing generators are unaffected by this proposed amendment. We've also extended alternative paint brands if the colors match the approved samples. And finally, the laundry yard screening wall height increased to 2.4 meters on application. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandika. Jody, I think
Okay, sorry, we had a bit of interference between my office and Sandika's. We're going to kick off with Q&A. Just while...
Before you start that, Jody, may I suggest, Mark, it might be useful for our homeowners to understand how we landed on the proposed amendments to the short-term letting. It was quite a long process, starting with your research to do sort of comparisons with our various neighbors, going on to in-session consultation and a working group comprising managers and residents. I think it's a useful background. It lends some richness to where we landed.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Jeff. I think that you've pretty much summed it up quite well. Members would know that we committed, following many engagement sessions leading up to the AGM and post AGM last year, to go through a review process. That process started with engagements directly with the sectional title schemes, together with CSOS. From there, we flowed into engagement sessions on short-term letting. We offered members the opportunity to submit written submissions on short-term letting questions or comments and the like. Thereafter, through the process that Sandika mentioned, the board established a short-term letting advisory group. We called for nominees. We had people that were both for short-term letting and those against short-term letting to give a balanced view. We took legal members from the legal committee. So we had, counting Sandika, the legal director, and one of our other legal advisory working group members. We had three legal qualified persons on that panel. And then they worked through the various submissions that were given, as well as the review on the other estates, to land on the recommendations. Those recommendations were then tabled with management and the board. Some of the impractical elements were altered to make it slightly more practical, so they weren't done verbatim to what the recommendations were, but the spirit of the amendments carried throughout. Further to that, in order to take the resolution forward, we also looked at the suggestion of trying to separate the various amendments into separate resolutions so that it wasn't an all or one process. However, the complexities around linking of rules and possibility of mix match versions of the various clauses being adopted meant that there would have been 14 different resolutions tabled for members' consideration. It was the view that that would be far too cumbersome and difficult to follow, and therefore the full set of amendments is proposed as one resolution, which I think underpins our commitment as shared by management to go through these processes transparently and in an accountable fashion.
Well, thanks, Mark.
All right, to kick off questions, we do have one question that we received via WhatsApp. Just before I read the questions, may we please request that if you are asking a question this evening, you ask it under your name, as we are not able to take anonymous questions. So let's go to the question I received from WhatsApp from Jacqueline Woodhouse. Sandika, this one is for you. Could I please ask around the short-term levy? What will the cost be, and will this be in addition to the fingerprints of the renters that is currently required at the Welcome Centre?
So currently, the existing rules make provision for reasonable administrative charges. The amendment was intended to reflect the status of the levies charged to short-term letting members, which do not constitute a gain to the association. So essentially, it's not envisaged that we will add more costs or try to profit off short-term letting. What is required is that in the event that a member is deregistered or not permitted to short-term let anymore because of consistent breaches, then in such instances, they would need to reapply and pay the reapplication fee. But we do not envisage an increase in exponential increase apart from the increments seen in budget meetings for short-term letting.
Thanks, Sandika. Justin Clark would like to ask Mark, this one's for you. Hello, Team Simbiti. Should the answers from the new nominees not be shared publicly, members should have access to the truth?
Justin, thank you so much for your question. I think firstly, questions asked of specific people remain sort of personal information, and those director nominees have the right to keep those answers private. Having said that, however, members retain their right to ask questions of nominees or to have statements made if they so wish at the annual general meeting, which is conducted in accordance with the Companies Act. Given that it's a hybrid meeting, the Companies Act requires that questions are not to be moderated and there should be no intermediary who plays that part. So that right has remains unchanged. Of note, since 2024 and 2025, where we've had in-person sessions. In 2024, we had 35 people that attended the in-person session with the nominees. No questions were asked of nominees. We had 211 views of the recording of that session and no questions were submitted. Last year, we had a collective 308 views of the videos which were circulated. Last year was the first time we introduced the videos because we felt it would have greater reach. The statistics bear truth to that, given that instead of having a total of 340 views in 2024, that reached 3,008 views. Similarly, last year there were no questions posed for any director nominees, and this year we have stayed consistent to that. As of checking and before this meeting, we had a total of 811 views of the videos which were launched this morning.
Thanks, Mark. Sandika, question from Shadrach Mwepuli. If a short-term tenant wants to have visitors who are members of the family, is that still proposed to be prohibited? If not prohibited, can there be registers? I am considering the practicality of a short-term tenant with visitors who may have traveled long distance to be with friends or family.
As the rules are proposed, if they are non-residents, unfortunately, non-residential guests will not be permitted.
Thanks, Sandika.
Obviously, Sandika, if I just add, Belito has many facilities where members, including our country club, where you can entertain your guests and your family, that they don't need access to the estate.
Thanks, Mark. Sandika, from Ethel Collard, can you tell us what happens if someone wants to check in after hours?
Okay, so the proposed rules mandate that a host must be present at the time of checking in. Where the welcome center is closed at the time when the short-term guest checks in, at the next available time, the guests will be required to go through an induction process at the welcome center.
That would be together with the host or property
With the
practitioner
host.
present
With the
in
host.
accordance with the rule. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark and Sandika. At this time, I am aware that it is 6:20, but at this time, we don't have any open questions. So, Mark, over to you. Oh, hang on. Justin Clark. We have a proud reputation of not allowing canvassing for votes. We don't want the running of our estate to become a political contest and have rules to prevent this. Why have the new nominees been allowed to use pamphlets, social media, and door-to-door canvassing, and what has been done to stop this?
Thanks, Justin. I'll answer that question. There's actually nothing in our rules that prevents what you suggest. I think that any suggestion that there is anything in the rules around canvassing via political campaigns, I think is what you used. The board of directors may consider their rights in terms of what can be done, and that must be in consultation with legal counsels. In terms of a rule for pamphlets, however, there is rules within our estate rules that deal with pamphlets specifically and using brochures. That rule, I think, is 1111 is the number of the rule. Where there's an infringement with any rule of the estate management's role is to enforce compliance with that rule and to apply whatever sanction is set out in our management penalty guide and the management appeals process. In this instance, those processes have been followed and that has been concluded.
Thanks, Mark. Sandika, question for you. Andy Arthur. What happens when a short-term rental is only needed for 3 nights? And more generally, why is 4 nights the minimum?
From the research that we have studied in devising this rule, we have found that the more nights one stays, the less likely the bookings are to be for parties or social events and social gatherings. It's intended to be for staying over and enjoying the estate as a residential facility. That is the reason why 4 nights were agreed on and proposed in line with what's done in other states as well. Practically, if someone tries to book another short-term guest while a guest is already checked in for those 4 nights, even if a person cancels, we will not accept another booking for the duration of that initial 4 night period.
Thanks, Andika. Going to say this slowly this time. There are no open questions at this time. So in the absence of any last minute questions coming through, Mark, I think I can hand over to you to close the evening.
Thanks, Jody. Thank you, members. I appreciate the engagement tonight. To the panelists, thanks for attending. We look forward to hosting. We see a hand came up. Hold on.
Yes, you've got a hand, Mark. It is Charles Roberts. Charles, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you could just unmute, and then you may ask your question to the panel. Okay, so Charles is unmuted. I'm not sure why we can't hear him.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Charles, we have you. You may ask your question.
Okay, so there are a number of clauses that either require amendment or introduction for each of the resolutions. If one of those clauses finds disfavor with the electorate, that would jeopardize the entire resolution, despite all the other clauses being in favor? Or are we going to vote then one vote per resolution or one vote per clause?
Thanks, Charles. I'm happy to deal with that question. So I did speak about it when I spoke about the short-term letting, and we understand that there is a risk in proposing all the amendments in the terms of one resolution. Members will be asked to vote in favor, against, or abstain for a resolution for all amendments, so one vote on all amendments for short-term letting, and similarly, one vote on all amendments to the design review code. Now, admittedly, we understand that there could be a specific clause that doesn't find favor and that could jeopardize the carrying of those amendments. Should that happen, for whatever reason, the board, and in this case, the board, will have the right that they have enshrined in terms of the MOR to go back and review whatever rule changes they want and make a resolution for those to be an interim binding effect, i.e. to take effect with immediate case, and then bring that for ratification at the next available general meeting of members. As I said, in relation to the short-term letting rule, the complexities around trying to incorporate the amendments into the current set of rules with referencing to other rules would have meant that just for that specific resolution, members would have had to vote for 14 separate resolutions. It's difficult enough to keep track of members' wishes when it is for just 2 or 3 resolutions. Undoubtedly, placing 14 resolutions with the background to those resolutions and explaining them to all members is quite cumbersome and certainly not going to be any easier than having it as one. But yes, there is a risk associated with an all or nothing approach.
Thank you, Mark. This is a legal question. So Sandika, and then perhaps Mark, if you need to jump in. Karen Herbert, is there a maximum number of proxies that may be given to a specific person?
No, there is no such restriction in.
Thanks, Sandika. So this is sorry, go for it, Mark.
I just want to add, there's no restrictions in terms of the Companies Act. CIHOA is governed as an NPC in terms of the Companies Act. Members generally default across to Sectional Title Schemes Management Act and constitutions of other associations that are common law associations where there may be restrictions imposed. It's important to know the distinction that as a not-for-profit company, CIHOA, Simbiti Eco State Homeowners Association, is governed by the legislation, the Companies Act, And in terms of that, there are no restrictions on the number of proxies.
Thanks, Mark. This is not a question, just a comment, which I will read out from Tracy. Thank you so much for the tremendous amount of hard work, time, and commitment that has gone into these important changes ahead of the upcoming vote on the short-term letting rules. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Simbiti board and management for listening to the concerns raised by residents and for taking meaningful steps towards strengthening the rules. These changes are incredibly important to the peace, security, integrity, and long-term well-being of our community. It is encouraging to see the matter being taken seriously and to see such positive progress being made. Please know that your efforts are genuinely appreciated. I have tremendous respect for the work that has gone into getting us to this point, and I am truly grateful to everyone involved for their time, commitment, and willingness to address what has been a very important issue for so many residents and the integrity of our estate. Thank you for your kind words. Tracy, Mark, we still have 97 online, but at this moment, no open questions.
Okay, then we'll try again, and thank you very much, everybody, for taking part. We look forward to seeing you at our hybrid AGM, the 18th for Country Club. Please, if I can appeal to everybody to take part in the survey that's going to be circulated. The more responses we get, the greater Exco gets a feel for what the community are wanting, and the greater we can serve you as a community. Thank you very much. Have a good evening and stay warm.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.